Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Travis Newbill. I live and work here at Shambhala Mountain Center, where we're going to be hosting a very interesting program just in a little over a week called Natural Brilliance Leading from Within. And I'm so glad to say that I have Irini Rockwell with us today to have some conversation. She's going to be leading the retreat. And Irini is the director, founder, and principal trainer of the Five Wisdoms Institute and Wisdoms at Work. She is a professional development trainer for organizational leaders, health caregivers, educators, artists, and individuals. And she's the author of Natural Brilliance, a Buddhist system for uncovering your strengths and letting them shine, as well as the Five Wisdom Energies, a Buddhist way of understanding personalities, emotions, and relationships. Irini, thank you so much for taking the time to have some discussion today. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Thank you. Thank you, Travis.
Good. Yeah.
Come on.
You're welcome.
Thank you for inviting me to this short chat. So I think you're leading the way with your questions.
Okay. Well, I hope that I lead well here, speaking with a leadership teacher. To begin with, the work that you do is largely based on the Five Wisdom Energies, which comes out of Tibetan Buddhist philosophy thinking.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of people are somewhat familiar with these energies, at least because they've probably seen Tibetan prayer flags, and often the five colors that correspond to those five energies are in the flags. And often I get into this. Living at Shambhala Mountain Center, we have flags all over the place, and so people often ask me about them, and then I kind of start to explain, but I realize, pretty quickly that it's a big thing to open up. So I wonder what is what's the beginning thing that you have to say about when somebody says what are the five wisdoms, or what are these colors, and how do you begin with that?
Well, the five wisdoms are also called the five Buddha families, and they're, as you say, in traditional tantric teachings. And so they have great power because they work very directly with your body, your speech, and your mind. And they're the postures that we do. There are five postures for each one has a energy, and that provokes or invokes a certain pattern of energy. So we have the chance, by taking the postures, to really come to a very direct understanding of who we are. And the reason I brought these, I've been teaching these for over 30 years now, and in recent years I've mostly been focusing on leadership, leading from within the best of who we are, leading from where our natural intrinsic brilliance is. And the point here is that everyone is somewhat blind to themselves, and this, you can go into be positioned in a great leadership position, but if you don't know yourself, then you can stumble in that situation. It's also true that we stumble in our personal lives. So the first thing I always said is it's a way of finding out who you are. And not only that, but because each energy has both its neurosis and its wisdom, the journey with the five postures and the five energies is to see both. We see our neurosis, where we get stuck, where we get constricted, where we can't get out of our own way, and we also see our brilliance, our personal brilliance that is unique to us. And we use the places we get stuck as work points, and the places that are where we shine as places where we really can lead from. So the point is that we gradually move towards our brilliance in 5 colors, and that we actually open a larger palette of colorings within ourselves because we know all 5. Like, for instance, there's a common tendency to think, oh, I'm this color, but what you're doing there is you're really solidifying who you are. So the real point is to see all your energies, and therefore all your energies are available to you. So in one situation, you might really need sort of an intellectual brilliance or acuity to write a PhD paper or present a lecture in front of a lot of very intimidating people. So the blue energy is one that you have to cultivate and make it available to you. In a more social situation or an intimate situation with a partner or a best friend, you really want to call on the energy that we call the red energy or the Padma energy. And that's all about joining and connecting and being very intimate and personal. And what we'll find is that whether it's ourselves or our friends or colleagues, relationships, family members, some people are more predominantly in one energy or another, and the other energy could be hidden or it can be very confused energy. So the whole practice is to be fluent with all these possibilities, have a sense of spaciousness, which we cultivate, a sense of, which is white, a sense of intellectual brilliance, which is the blue energy, a sense of resourcefulness and abundance, and that the world is your oyster and you can live in a sense of richness, which is the yellow energy. And then, as I said, the red energy is all about connection and relationship and really feeling a strong resonance with people. And then the 5th one is action. Get it done. You know what to do, when to do it, you have the best skills to do it with, and so you make it happen. So knowing all of those and having all those very available to you is really a very strong position to hold when you're leading others or in your life. I sometimes think of leadership as being proactive in life, that whatever you're doing, you can hold your seat with a sense of confidence and dignity, and you can manifest from that seat, lead from the inner resources within you. And so this program is really cultivating those inner resources. And there's a tremendous breadth to this possibility because the 5 energies basically encompass every experience you could possibly have with all its permutations. And there's also a depth because basically what we're doing here is going towards our wisdom, that we're trying to cultivate our intrinsic wisdom, which is very individual, very unique. And so that's what the program is. Do you want me to say more about the program?
Well, I think we could maybe pause, and I just wanted to sort of reflect or see if I got the one piece of what you said, which you took a moment and just described the 5 different energies,
Yes.
which we can understand as being different qualities that we may possess is a tricky word in Buddhism, but different qualities that we may embody in different situations in order to achieve great things in our lives. These 5 different qualities are symbolized by 5 different colors. And so to begin with, it seems like it can be helpful for people to just maybe have some kind of intellectual understanding or think about these different categories of feeling or behavior that may already manifest in our lives in positive and negative ways. And then I guess and then in your work, it becomes more experiential, because you're working with postures that I think date back. Some of the postures are from very early in tantric Buddhism, and these are ways of really experiencing and connecting with those particular energies, and so the familiarity deepens. Does that seem accurate, all of that?
Yeah, you got it. There's two ways to go, however. You could start by reading books, but some people like to start with the experience, so it really depends. You get a lot of understanding through the books, but there is nothing like the power of experiencing energies. And people, even in a weekend, have very transformative experiences. So it's very powerful work, and it changes people's lives. We're lucky here at Shambhala Mountain Center because we're going to have 3 programs, 2 weekend programs in January, and then April, and then a 5-day one in August. So there'll be a chance to move forward with this work if one is so inclined, or you could do them just on their own, each program.
So another thing that you mentioned, which I think is interesting, is that we may have a tendency, and I think we see this all over the place, people really identifying with their astrological sign or something like that. We've got a tendency to want to categorize ourselves or pin ourselves down, and you started talking a little bit about how that can be very limiting. I wonder if you could say a little bit more about that within the context of this vast presentation of the various energies and ways that we can manifest.
Mm-hmm. Part of the work is to know sort of what your dominant energy or energies is, but the problem is if you solidify too quickly that I am Padma, red, I just love engagement, you miss a lot of the subtleties of who you are. And further, the point is to basically have 5 available to you. Sometimes I call them like having 5 gears, or I call it the daily diet of 5, that you have all 5 of those delicious energies in your day. So when you can broaden your idea of who you are, you're much more powerful, and you can do what is needed. So the fruition of the work is having 5 wisdoms. You've moved forward, and you've, as much as possible, dropped the neurosis of them. You have 5 wisdoms available to you. And then, rather than going forward too much with your agenda, it allows you to sort of hold back and see what's needed. And when you can hold back your agenda and see what's needed, then you go towards what's needed. You respond to what's needed with one or more of the energies. And it's extremely profound practice to be able to do that. I'm working on it myself.
I think that as mindfulness meditation has become more mainstream, I think that there seems to be an immediate logic or way that makes sense. That if focusing on the breath, and you can kind of experience that rather quickly, that it brings a sense of calm. And talking about the wisdom energies, maybe to my ear, it seems initially a little bit more abstract, and I wonder if there's any way to introduce people or allow them to like connect with what's being presented there, in an immediate fashion, like you might say, count to 10 with your breath, and then like, you know what I'm saying? Like some
You're talking about abstract or conceptual versus experiential, right?
yes, yeah.
Yeah, and my first book, The Five Wisdom Energies, is written in a very easy to understand way with lots of examples of real life situations and people. They're not, I don't use their real names, except for my children. They're named. But that gives I think the first book gives people a real sense of what these energies might feel to you. That's the feedback that I get from a lot of people, is how much that book in particular has helped them. So that's one way to go, but really what I find is that the postures really take people, jumpstart the whole thing for people. And that's why we do programs. I've done zillions and zillions of programs to introduce people to the postures. And I have longer trainings in which people, do the postures over years, periods of years, and graduate from a training. So is that what you mean? I mean, I think it's somewhat reading it in a way that sort of resonates and then experiencing them. I want to mention that in the program we do sitting meditation. Sitting meditation, as you say, stabilizes and tames us. And it's very necessary to do sitting meditation in juxtaposition to working with the postures, because the postures heighten energy. And what we want to do is heighten energy but not get it out of hand. And so we do sitting practice to kind of bring the wisdom out, because we provide a more spaciousness. So posture practice and sitting meditation are very important to work together. And the other thing that I want to say is that mindfulness is, in the mainstream now. But the other part of that's so important to Buddhism is awareness. And the five wisdoms actually work more with awareness than mindfulness, though mindfulness is the base.
Can you say a little bit more about that? Like for people who are not even familiar with like what you mean by awareness, what could you say?
Yeah, mindfulness is the sense of being one-pointed and really allowing our minds to come to a very strong sense of attentiveness. And that is very important, because what it does is it tames our minds. Awareness is saying, okay, now I have a mind that can focus, that is attentive. But what I want to do is open and we make the shift actually from a lowered gaze to raising the gaze, and that simple shift to awareness means that you're taking in 360 degrees, or at least 180, and then with a tamed mind, whatever is coming up is brought to awareness. And you have the ability to meet that, not with getting distracted and discursive and everything else, but with a simple sense of being in the moment, very fresh. It's like being able to have each moment be extremely awakening. And that happens as we interact with our world. Awareness practice is very important for the five wisdoms, because it's all about how this body, this corporal body, with all its sense perceptions, which are our antenna to the world, interacts with the world. how do we see? How do we smell? How do we taste? How do we hear? That's all about energy. And energy and sense perceptions are very linked. We work a little bit with sense perceptions too. And emotion. So awareness of our surroundings and our outer world, awareness of our inner world of emotions and thoughts. This is all tremendous information for us about who we are, where we get stuck, where we can't get out of our own way, and where we shine. What's our brilliance? What's your real contribution? In what way do you contribute the best of who you are to the world?
I wonder if before we wrap up, if there's any sort of contemplation or short little something that you could offer to people who may be watching or listening as a way for them to maybe bring a little bit more awareness into their their day, their moment right now in their office or their car or wherever they are.
I think that wherever they are is a big factor. What we find is that we're kind of chameleon. We are different people in different places. How are you when you're at home, say, sitting in your armchair, looking out at the scenery? Or how are you when you're at an airport? Or how are you when you're at a dinner party? So if you start to take note of who you are in different places, you begin to get a sense of the vastness, actually, of who you are. That you're not just one thing. You're not one-dimensional. You're many, many dimensions. And that is beginning to allow yourself to fully come into your brilliance, to be full.
Thank you for that. So you've spoken a lot about like what you do in like a workshop is introducing people to this practice of taking postures, which allows them to really connect and experience the 5 wisdom energies, and then working with those energies in different ways. I wonder if there's anything else about the retreat at Shambhala Mountain Center in particular that you haven't had a chance to say that you'd like to.
Well, Shambhala Mountain Center is very dear to my heart, and there is nothing better to gift yourself than to do a residential program. In other words, when you unplug from your world and go to a place where you're fed and you're have a bed and you have a program, and we create a community where there's trust, so you can actually kind of let down your hair and be who you are in your fullness or your shyness or whatever. And I guess what I'm saying here is the fact that it's residential, and we create a warm community to make this work happen. It's very special.
I live here. All that is true, and the food is really good. So Irini, thank you so much for taking the time to share some wisdom, and we're really looking forward to hosting you and everyone who is going to be coming up and joining. I'll be in the program for the weekend, as well as some of my friends who live up here, I know, so we're all really excited for it. And for anyone who's listening who may have, just to repeat, this is Irini Rockwell, and she's leading Natural Brilliance. The retreat is taking place January 23rd through the 25th. This is 2015. And you can learn more about the program by visiting shambhalamountain.org. And you can also check out lots more interviews like this, as well as lots of teachings from the various teachers who come up here on the SMC blog. And there's a little button on the top right corner of the website. So thank you all for listening, for tuning in, and we'll see you again next time, and hopefully see you up here on the lovely land soon. So until next time, be well. Bye.
Thank you, Travis.
Thank you.